Hey everybody, it's Andy. This is In the Hot Box, episode 16. Today is June 24th, 2018, and I had recorded a video and I was going to put it together. It was me reading from a chapter in a new book I'm doing called Five Roads to Texas, and it's by a collaboration of authors from Phalanx Press. The authors are Rich Baker, who wrote the Zed World series, Alan Gamboa, the Dead Island series, Joseph Hansen, the Zombie Rush series, W.J. Lundy, the Tangy Sauce, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot series. I narrated book 7 of that series. And then Brian Parker, the author of the Path of Ashes series. And the foreword was by J.L. Bourne, who wrote the Day by Day Armageddon series, which I've read, was pretty good, and the Tomorrow War series, which I'm actually listening to now on Audible. Anyway, it's a conglomeration of authors working together, or a collaboration. I can't speak. I did a video of me reading the chapter. I was going to put it together and then add the final product at the end. And there was no sound, because even though I can hear myself in these things, the video recording program I used was muted. I never caught it. Didn't know it. So I had 14-minute video. Waste of my effing time. So anyway, I'm not reading it again. I just wanted to say hello. It's been a while since I've been here in the hot box. Oh, listen to that. Toilet flushing. Kids are home. Look, I can't get anything done. Anyway, again, I do these videos because I know there are lots of people out there who want to do voiceovers, want to do audiobooks, want to do anything like that. And these videos are to let you know that it's not easy. It's tedious. It takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time. And I've been blessed. Well over 100 books under my belt. And it just takes time. That's, for me, doing it part-time, that's 6 years of effort. And I've done pretty well, so I've been pretty lucky, I think. A lot of works, studying other people, listening to books, classes, all that kind of stuff. Not just the audiobook reading part, the acting, but the technical part. So I put these videos out for folks who might be interested in them, who are new to it, or maybe who aren't and who want to make fun of me, because I'm not the best by any stretch. I am I'm good, but I'm not the best, nowhere near it. And these videos, I hope, educate you a little bit about what goes into these books. And I wish that damn thing had recorded properly, because you could see when I make my boo-boos how the final product comes out. So anyway, it ain't gonna work. Sorry. But I will put the final product of what I read after this little bit of me. And this book is coming out July 4th on Amazon. It's called Five Roads to Texas by the authors I told you about. And I'm hoping to have this portion done, the audio portion done, by the time it comes out. And then once it's all approved and processed through whatever ACX does through Audible, it probably won't be out until mid to late July, but pretty close to when the book actually gets released. So if you want both, you can wait, or you want audio, wait for the audio. Wait for the audio. So anyway, In the Hot Box, episode 16. It's been a while since the mold disaster of the mid-spring. Ooh, thumping around. It's been a while, but the room is held up. I must have figured out how to do it right, because there's no leaking, and everything's dry, and the foam is there, and this thing sounds good, and this giant microphone is in my face, but it's the best place for it. And the life goes on, the business moves on, and so do what I do. It's been extremely busy. I've got a bunch of books that have come out over the last month. Flipside, the Zombie Annihilation, The Flower Man, Paradox Slaughter, a couple of romances that I do under a different name. So anyway, listen to this chapter. The book will be out soon. I hope you like it. I think it'll be good. I enjoy it, so I think it'll be a good series. I think it'll do well. Anyway, I'm signing off. Listen to the chapter and wait for the book. And when it comes out, as usual, I'll put out a little trailer for it with all the links. Thanks. Have a good summer, if I don't see you before then, because it's busy. Bye. Prologue. Brazilian Highlands Rainforest, 25 March. As the helicopter orbited the remote village, Riley Erickson could see fires burning on the ground. Smoke billowed, forming thick clouds of black smoke that blocked out the sunlight. She looked down at the file in her hand and opened it, once again examining the photos of mangled bodies and faces frozen in rage. She looked up, startled, when a man in a khaki jacket to her front touched her arm. He smiled at her and pointed at his wrist. "We'll be on the ground in a few minutes," he said. "What exactly are we after here, Doc?" She pursed her lips and put away the folder. "I'm not sure. A few days ago, reports started coming in that people in this village were acting erratically. The government thought it might be another rebellion or something to do with the drug trade, so they sent in teams. It took them a day to regain control of the village. After they did, they noticed some of the survivors continued to get ill. And violent." He looked up at her suspiciously. The man, Jonathan Reed, wasn't a doctor or any sort of medical professional. He was part of a State Department personal security detail. Riley had tried to refuse the extra baggage, but at the last minute before her flight, her superiors had insisted the man tag along. And now, looking at the updated file information she had received on the ground at the Nova Republica airfield, she knew why. Whatever was happening deep in the Brazilian rainforest was getting worse. It was her job to find out what it was. "Is it a new drug?" Reed asked. She shrugged and looked at him. "Could be. Or an infectious disease. Maybe just another uprising. It's too early to say." Riley reached down for her medical bag and removed a paper mask that she snapped over her mouth and passed an identical one to Jonathan. The bodyguard held the mask like it was a tissue. He looked at her and said, "Is this really necessary?" Riley nodded. "Until we're sure it's not infectious, we should be cautious." Jonathan shrugged and put the mask on, but let it hang around his neck. The helicopter was on the final approach, and he readied himself next to the door. Seconds after the landing gear made contact with the ground, the door slid open, and Jonathan stepped outside. He turned back to face her. "Get your sample, and we get out." She nodded, but Jonathan kept his eyes on her. "I have to know that you understand," he said. "The spread will stay running. Meet your contact, get the blood samples, and we go. It isn't safe here, and I'm not just talking about whatever it is making these people nuts. There are over 100 flavors of criminals in this jungle, and I'm not eager to meet any of them." Losing patience at being spoken to like a child, Riley moved up in the seat and pushed past him. She stepped into the humid air and walked away from the landing pad, carrying her backpack over her left arm. As she walked, she searched the surroundings. She saw men in olive green uniforms setting fire to buildings, while people were herded together in small, confined crowds under armed guard. She'd seen similar overreactions in the Congo. Government forces there quelled entire villages to put down some perceived outbreak. Easily treated things like cholera were mistaken for Ebola, and hundreds of lives were lost in the ensuing panic. At the end of one of the masses, she saw the man she was looking for, a Brazilian medical chief. Paolo Aguirre was tall and middle-aged, and his silver hair hung down over dark brown skin. He was standing near the edge of the civilians, speaking into a cell phone, but as he saw Riley approach, he ended the call and hastily approached her. "Dr. Erickson, I hope the trip was kind to you," he said. Riley looked past the man to the rounded-up villagers. "What's going on here?" she asked. "Why are you holding them like that?" Paolo frowned. "We've failed to contain it. These people will be moved to quarantine, but until we have transportation, we have to keep them in small, manageable groups in case one is infected. We can't risk one infecting all of them." Turning her head, she pointed to the burning homes. "And the fire?" "The military has ordered the entire village be burned, even the dead." "What exactly is it you're trying to prevent the spread of?" she asked, growing frustrated at the treatment of innocent people. "Where are the samples?" Paolo looked around him, then stepped closer to her. "There is more you should know. Please follow me." The doctor turned and quickly stepped away toward a row of covered bodies near the edge of the village. Apprehensive now, Riley looked back to make sure Jonathan was close by. The large bodyguard hadn't spoken, but he was shadowing her, sticking close behind her, his eyes scanning for threats. She could see he was nervous about being on the ground, and now having seen the danger firsthand, she was feeling guilty for blowing off his warning. He looked down at her and nodded, okaying her to follow the doctor. The man was kneeling over the row of bodies, and he pulled back a long white sheet revealing the faces of 4 men, all of them clearly not native to the village. The bodies had blood seeping from the eyes and ears, gunshot wounds to their heads. "Who are they?" Riley asked. Paolo shook his head. "I don't know, but these two are Korean, and the other men are Iranian. All of their papers say they are Lebanese." "Why would you think they were Iranian?" Pointing to one of the dead men, Paolo said, "Because he told me before the soldiers killed him. He was early symptomatic when we arrived, but soon his behavior changed, and he attacked my staff." Riley pointed at the bodies. "It doesn't look like any disease killed these men. It looks like your soldiers did the killing." Paolo clenched his jaw, causing Jonathan to move closer. "You don't understand. They were dangerous." She shook off his comment and looked around at the nearby area. "Where are the rest of your people? The rest of your staff?" Riley asked. Paolo shook his head and looked away. "Dr. Erickson, why are these men in central Brazil? Why were they here?" he asked, ignoring the question and pointing to the bodies of the dead foreigners. A scream, followed by several gunshots, erupted on the far side of the village. Riley turned to move toward it, but Jonathan stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "It's okay," Paolo said. "It's one of the containment groups." "How is that okay?" Riley asked, her tone turning harsh as more gunfire filled the air. "If any one of the groups shows signs of violence, the soldiers will shoot them." Disgusted, Riley tried to move toward the shooting. "You're executing people for being sick!" she shouted. Jonathan reached out and stopped her. "Doctor, the sample. Please, we need to go." Paolo, overhearing the large man, moved quickly to a set of boxes on the ground near the bodies. "Yes, of course, the samples. And you should take this too," he said, returning and handing Riley an olive green case. "What is it?" she asked. "It's filled with notes, things these men had in their possession. I don't know the language, but perhaps you can get help with it." A woman in a nearby group screamed and attacked another civilian next to her. A soldier raised his rifle to take the pair out as more people rose from the group and overwhelmed him. Other nearby soldiers panicked and fired into the group. Small clusters of villagers began to scream and broke up as the soldiers fired at the fleeing people. No longer debating, Jonathan grabbed Riley by the arm and turned her toward the helicopter, pushing her ahead. She began to protest that she needed to get more information from Paolo, but was cut short. Riley screamed as a round zipped past her and hit the Brazilian doctor just above the right eye. Jonathan pushed her into a crouch and rushed her toward the waiting helicopter. As they ran, she could see that a mob of people was chasing after them. Riley sprinted and reached the open door just as she heard Jonathan's weapon fire. Turning back, she realized her bodyguard had turned and was firing at the attackers. The villagers were moving quickly, some of them running directly at Jonathan, trying to tackle him to the ground. He fought hard, swinging with his left hand as he fired into their bodies point blank with the handgun. He continued moving backward as he fought until he was in the opening of the door, screaming at the pilots to take off. He reloaded his weapon and continued firing as the helicopter left the ground and circled over the village. Looking down, Riley could see that the place was lost. There were no more neatly arranged groups of villagers waiting to be quarantined. Instead, she saw masses of bodies pouncing and chasing after panicked soldiers. Jonathan slammed the cabin door shut and fell back into his seat. "What the hell was that?" he shouted. "I don't know. You saw what they were doing. They were executing the infected. What would you do if you saw your family members and neighbors murdered?" Jonathan let out a sadistic laugh and holstered his pistol. "I think we saw two different things, Doc. I saw some rabid-ass people with bloodlust. They were out of their bodies crazy." He stopped and adjusted his shirt and looked back at her. "Did you get what you needed?" She nodded, then looked at his arm. There was a trickle of blood moving down his elbow. "You're hurt," she stated. Jonathan straightened his arm, looking at the cut on his right bicep. He removed a bandana from his pocket and tied it around the wound. "It's just a scratch. I'll get it looked at when we get back to D.C."